Thank you for joining this webinar. Let me introduce myself. I am Hetal Thakur, partner of Dua Associates, which is a full-fledged, full-service law firm with a pan-India presence, which also specializes in IPR practice. In this session, we propose to address issues and questions which have vexed lawyers and professionals in the media and the entertainment industry since long. Questions like, can I publish poems of Rabindranath Tagore or the stories of Munshi Premchand without anybody's permission? Can I publish pictures of Mona Lisa or the Last Supper without anybody's permission? Why can't I use Mickey Mouse without taking Disney's permission? Can I remake old classics films of Bimal Roy or Alfred Hitchcock without taking any permissions? Can I play old songs of Michael Jackson in the public without any restrictions or licenses? These questions, which all practitioners, stakeholders confront, are vexed questions which we hope to answer through this webinar. We have on our panel two eminent practicing counsels who will attempt to answer these questions and address these issues. Mr. Virendra Tulsapurkar, Senior Counsel, needs no introduction. His reputation as arguably the leading counsel in India in IPR matters precedes him. With him, we have Mr. Hiren Kamod, counsel who has also argued a large number of matters in the Bombay High Court and in several other courts, who will assist him to address these questions and many other aspects of what we call public domain in the field of copyright law. Dr. Tulsapurkar, sir, can I please request you to take over, sir?
Yeah, here is. Thank you. Mr. Hetal Thakur and friends, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
I am thankful to you for inviting me to be a member of the panel on this topic, which is very interesting. And Mr. Hiren is going to talk on that topic. I was only asked to speak for 5 minutes. I don't know why that restriction was put, but I am very happy. The topic is very interesting. I was a little confused in the beginning when the topic was mentioned to me about public domain under copyright regime. We had heard about this public domain under confidentiality or confidential information. But the topic which is selected is very interesting, as you can appreciate from the questions which are faced by the industry and the lawyers, which were enumerated by my friend Mr. Hetal Thakur. As far as confidentiality is concerned, it is the confidential information which is protected by law, but that confidential information has to be confidential and it should not be in public domain. If the information is already available in public domain, then that protection cannot be given. Now, similar protection is given under the copyright regime, and that comes in, the concept is the same. That comes in that any work which is in public domain, no one can claim monopoly. And no one can say that I alone is entitled to use that work. For example, a short example is the question of idea. Now, there can't be any monopoly in idea. Idea is in public domain. Any idea can be picked up by anybody. The only question that remains is whether that idea is developed in a particular manner, then it acquires the characteristic of copyrightable work. Second thing is that the copyrightable work is protected for a particular period. If during that period, if anybody else wants to make use of that work, he will not be allowed to use that work for his own benefit without the license of the copyright owner. This depends on the duration of the copyright work. Ordinarily, it is 60 years after the death of the author or 60 years after the completion of the cinematograph film. Now, thereafter, it goes into public domain. It goes into public domain means it is available to anybody and everybody to make use of it. But mind well, it's a moot question whether it is available for distortion. My own view is that it is not available for distortion even if it goes into public domain. And third thing is when copyrighted work itself is relinquished, ownership is relinquished and put into public domain by the author himself. Now, this is the basic concept of the public domain in the copyright regime. I am as much interested in hearing Mr. Hiren as you are. So, Mr. Hiren, I hand over mic to you.
Thank you so much, sir. All right. So there were some people who were writing that they could not hear, but I take it people are able to hear everything properly. Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here with all of you again digitally. I see there are a lot of participants who have participated regularly in a lot of the webinars, so it is good to see them also, though virtually. And obviously, it is a pleasure to be here with Virendra sir, and I have to thank Mr. Thakur and Dua Associates for organizing this wonderful webinar on a very interesting topic, which is public domain in copyright regime. And as Virendra sir correctly said, that this public domain under copyright regime is a very unique concept. There is a lot of time when we use public domain in a very normal manner, where we say, no, it is in public domain, it is available on internet, I can obviously use it. So there are a lot of notions which have to be cleared. So today my endeavor will be to draw that distinction, to explain to all the viewers that what do you mean by public domain under the copyright regime? What can you do and what you cannot do with the works which are fallen into public domain, and how this public domain has nothing to do with that public access, public records, publicly available, which are the general terms which we colloquially use. To begin with, our endeavor will be also to see that whether this public domain is just something in the background. It is just something which is left over after all the protections have gone, after all the tests for protecting the works, all those tests have been applied, and whatever is left, is that public domain? Is public domain only which is something in the background? As I said, after a set period of time, certain works will fall into public domain. So is public domain only something which is in the background? Or is there any larger public policy behind having this concept of public domain? Is there something more? Does this public domain, does it have a life of its own? These are certain things which we will try and endeavor today. I will take you through all the concepts of public domain. Obviously, I have a good PowerPoint presentation. I have tried to give more and more examples for you to understand whenever I'm explaining certain principles. So I am going to start my PowerPoint presentation because I'm going to explain the concepts and examples. Of course, it is going to be a fairly detailed one. However, I promise that I've tried to make it as interesting and not to make it dry, so that you can actually relate the principles of public domain with the day-to-day examples. As Mr. Thakur said, I believe by the end of the presentation, you will be in a position to answer why you can't use Mickey Mouse, why you can use Mona Lisa. If you are using Mona Lisa's picture, what all things you can do and you cannot do. All these questions which are there in your mind, I'm sure by the end of it, you will be able to answer that. Let me now begin with my presentation. I'm just going to share my screen. I take it that everybody is able to see my screen here. Mr. Thakur, are you able to see the screen? Can I proceed?
Yes, I can see the screen. You can proceed.
So public domain in copyright regime. Now, as I said, it's a very interesting topic where we have to bust a lot of myths regarding public domain in other fields of law, public domain or publicly available, all these concepts that we are aware of and that we generally use in a very colloquial manner. To understand quickly, what do you mean by public domain in copyright regime? You must know what is copyright. Everybody knows what is a copyright. It is a negative right to stop somebody from copying your work. So basically you have an exclusive right, and there are certain rights which are given to you under the Copyright Act once you are the owner of the copyright. So you are the exclusive owner of those rights, and nobody else will be able to copy your work or do those things which are given to you, the rights which are given to you under the Copyright Act. This is what you mean by a copyright. Now, because our entire presentation and the concept is going to revolve around works which fall under public domain, it is important for you to understand what are works under the Copyright Act. So the works that you see in front of you, these are what we are going to discuss. These are the works which will fall under copyright domain. These are the works which we will discuss to see what is the public policy behind all these works falling into public domain. So original, literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic works. So these are all basically different kind of works which have been defined in the Copyright Act. Cinematograph, film, and sound recordings. As you will see that prerequisite of originality is not required for cinematograph, film, and sound recordings, because cinematograph, film, and sound recording consist of various works taken together. So the concept of prerequisite of originality really applies to only literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic work. This you have to keep it in mind throughout the presentation in order to appreciate what do we mean by works, because we are going to only now talk about works which fall under the copyright domain, and works which are works which have protection and ultimately which fall under the copyright public domain. To begin with, it is always nice to start with a quick joke. There's a guy who's very happy that the employee has got some idea where he says, "You're a genius, sure. This is an idea whose copyright has expired." So they are happy that they will be able to use that idea for whatever they want to do. However, being lawyers that we are, as I found there's a technical flaw in the joke also. That idea can anyways not be protected, as Virendra sir also explained, and we will see. So this is a technical flaw in the joke. But when I saw that joke, it didn't strike me. But later I realized that there is a technical flaw. But anyways, moving ahead. Now, to understand this concept of public domain, as I said, that whether this public domain is something in the background or whether this public domain really has a life of its own, we have to really understand the life cycle of a copyright work. What do you mean by life cycle? Life cycle means the different stages through which you will pass. For an individual, a human being will pass. That is called as a life cycle. So for a copyright work, the moment a work or an idea is there in somebody's mind, that begins, that is where from this work is really going to stem. So moment you have an idea and you express it into some medium, copyright, because copyright does not lie in an idea, it lies in the expression of the idea. The moment you have a beautiful idea, a beautiful poem or a beautiful artistic work in your head, the moment you express it on some medium, that copyright comes into force insofar as that medium is concerned. Now, as we will see, there is a term of copyright, a limited term of copyright, which is given to different kinds of works. So, for example, 60 years in case of literary work, in case of artistic work, dramatic works, it is 60 years from the death of the author, which we will come to. But this is the second, in that sense, second phase of the life. The first phase is where that idea is there in the mind of the creator. The second phase is where that idea is really expressed and from where the copyright begins, where then you can economically exploit the idea. As I said, you have been given certain exclusive rights under the Copyright Act, which you can exploit. And ultimately, after 60 years, after that work has been exploited thoroughly and enjoyed thoroughly by the owners of the copyright, ultimately that work falls into public domain. Now, this life cycle is important because according to me, this idea, the work which really stems from the human mind, ultimately passes into the public domain, or in that sense returns to the earth. This is a very important part of a bigger public policy which is there behind this concept of public domain. According to me, the destiny really of any work, if I may say so, the destiny of the work, ultimately, that work may be a masterpiece of the century, that work may be the best work, or the work may be the saddest of work. Ultimately, the destiny of any copyright work lies in the fact that it will go into the pool of public domain. And as I said, according to me, the bigger policy behind that is copyright law. When it was enacted for the first time also, it actually was balancing two different rights. The intention was twofold. Number one was, of course, to give certain kinds of privileges and certain kind of exclusive rights to the authors. So authors have an incentive. It is like patent. In patents, for an invention, you get 20 years monopoly, after which it will fall in public domain. Similarly, copyright work also has been given a certain term of protection, after which that work will fall into public domain. So the first intention was, or the first leg of the copyright law was, to give an incentive to the authors, because a person, when he knows that he is going to get fruits for his labor, fruits for his idea, of course he will have urge of creating more work, and he will go on creating, he'll keep on creating more and more work. So A was to give an incentive, and for the work that he has created, he will get monopoly for a set period of time. That was the first intention. The second intention, however, was that that for the benefit of the society, for benefit of the public, because ultimately a culture of any country or a heritage of any country is also defined by these literary works and these artistic works and the songs and the movies and the scriptures which are there. These are the ones who really define or develop the cultural, either the culture or the cultural heritage of any country. So therefore, the two legs were, one was incentive to the author and two was for the benefit of public at large. At the end of the day, when the work finally comes in the public domain, that is the time anybody can use that work in an unhindered manner without taking any permission. And the intention behind that was to, as I said, more and more artistic, more and more creative work will be created which will ultimately benefit the entire public. And two, as somebody has said, that when you want to really create something new, you have to surround yourself with something that is old. So the idea was also that once this pool is available, pool of works of public domain is available to normal authors or to normal artists, they will get a starting point, and from there they will be able to do something even bigger, even something better. So this really is the intention of having this concept of public domain. So contrary to what people feel, that after 60 years and when the term of copyright is going to expire, it is going to be the death of the copyright. I am sorry, it is not going to be a death of the copyright. We can say that when it enters the public domain, the copyright work has reached its destiny. That is the next part of the life cycle of the copyright work. As we can see that, as I have shown it in the slide, that when the caterpillar becomes the public domain, so the work when it is created, I have shown it by way of that leaf. The caterpillar is when the copyright period is there, and ultimately the destiny is to become a bigger part, a bigger scheme of things. And in this case, I have shown that the caterpillar becomes a butterfly. So public domain surely is not something only in the background. These are the reasons, or this was the philosophy behind having a Copyright Act in the first place, in order to ensure that public at the end of the day and society at large at the end of the day really benefits from it. This, I'm sure most of you must not have seen. As you, everybody knows that registration of copyright is not compulsory. However, the moment you express your work, you have a copyright, and generally you put C next to it. That denotes that the person says that he has a copyright in it. Now, to show that there is no copyright or it is in public domain, these are certain signs which are used across the world. Let me tell you, none of these are really identified by WIPO or any statutory organization to say that, all right, you will mention C and cross or PD. But generally, as we will go through my presentation, you will see that certain organizations who really believe in this public domain and who make this public domain work available, they use these kind of signs to denote that this is in public domain. So you can use this work in the manner that you want. You can commercially exploit the work. You don't need any permission, and you can do whatever that you want to do with these kind of works. Hence, I thought it would be interesting to show everybody that how, if there is a copyright, this is the sign for work which is not copyrighted. Quickly, before getting into public domain, what works fall into public domain, let us get one notion clear. Publicly available and public domain under copyright law has nothing to do with each other. Publicly available is what? Information and or media that is generally available to public. So it is publicly available, no difficulty. Public domain in copyright will only mean those works which were earlier protected and now have fallen into public domain, or those works which were never protected in the first place. So just because something is publicly available has nothing to do with the public domain under the copyright regime. What is public record? Generally feel, no, I'll be entitled to do it. It is a public record. Again, public record is a different aspect. Public domain in the copyright regime is a different aspect. Public record is what? Documents or pieces of information which are not confidential pertaining to conduct. And this AR's 1995 is that Otto Shankar case, where in the context of personality right, the court had said that a public record in case of any personality would only mean record relating to his birth, death, educational qualifications, etc., and nothing more than that. So the point which I'm trying to draw is that publicly available, public record, or public knowledge that is available to anyone, that all is colloquially correct, that this is available to public. But public domain under the copyright law is a distinctive field. It has nothing to do with the fact that work is in public knowledge or public have access to it or it is a part of public record. So what is a public domain? It is not a place, but a concept. This is funny because when I was actually researching, there were people who had written, where is this public domain? Is there an office which is located in Geneva near WIPO? So it is not a place. Public domain is a concept. It consists of work that are not protected by copyright law, as I told you. Though, because those works are not protected by copyright law, you can take that work and do everything that the owner of copyright can do under the Copyright Act. So if it is a literary work, you can take it, you can make a movie out of it, you can make a book out of it, you can reproduce it, you can do whatever that you want to do with it. If it is a movie in the first place, you can make DVDs of it, copies of it, upload it anywhere, if that work is in public domain. So basically all the exclusive right, this is the mantra which you must remember. Public domain necessarily means that the exclusive right under the Copyright Act which the owners had, if that work is fallen into public domain, now all those rights any normal person will have. So you will not have to do anything by taking permission or doing anything. You will have the right to do everything. This is an interesting concept, that it consists of work anyone can use but no one owns it. So you are free to use it, I am free to use it, you're free to use it, but you can't say you own it or I own it. The scope of public domain differs in different countries. This, according to me, is the most interesting part of this public domain, which we will see in some of my subsequent slides. That imagine, take a song like Main Aawara Hoon, or take a song, any song of say Beatles. There is or take a song like Yeh Bombay Meri Jaan. Yeh Bombay Meri Jaan may be in public domain in India, but Yeh Bombay Meri Jaan will not be a public domain in US or in Mexico, or it will be in public domain in Canada. So these are some interesting concepts which we are going to see. So therefore, public domain concept also is territorial in nature. What may be in public domain for copyright in India may actually be protected in USA or some other country, which is what we will see in some of my subsequent slides. Once the work is in public domain, that same work can never come back in the realm of copyright protection. So after 60 years or after the term of protection is over, or after you have relinquished it, as we will see, once that work falls into public domain, that very work will never, a butterfly will never become a caterpillar. No chance. What you can do is you can twist the work, adapt the work, make a derivative of it, and then you can claim protection in that derivative work. But that very same work will not, Romeo and Juliet written by Shakespeare or Mona Lisa's painting which is done, all that can't come back into the copyright realm. What can come into copyright realm is the derivative work that you will do along with it. So these are some important concepts which you must remember for public domain. And as I said, when you apply this against now publicly available, what we say that it is available on internet, it is publicly available, all those are different concepts. For public domain, this is the concept insofar as copyright is concerned. Now, the only three sources of public domain. So let's not go here and there and try and confuse as to what do you mean, then what kind of works fall under public domain. There are only three sources from which this pool of public domain is made. Number one, all the works which are not copyrightable. So for example, ideas, themes, plots, theorems, discoveries, all these things per se are not copyrightable. So that is already in public domain. Any person can use it. Any person can use any idea that he wants, any theorem, principle that he wants. You can't have any kind of protection. Hence, those things are already into public domain. This is pool number one. This is first part of the pool. The second one is relinquished copyright. Under the copyright law of all the countries, there is a provision. The moment Hiren Kamod writes a poem, the moment I express it, I will have protection into that poem for 60 years after my death. So if I was to die, say in 2070, the poem which I have written will fall into public domain in 2130. So 60 years from the death of the author. However, before that, if I want to relinquish my copyright by saying that I am relinquishing it, I want this to go in public domain immediately. Anybody can use it the manner in which you want, commercially exploit it, do whatever that you want to do with it. There is a provision in all the Copyrights Act across the world where you can relinquish your copyright. The third is copyright term has expired. So, which I explained to you, once the copyright term has expired, why you see so many of Mona Lisa's painting everywhere, or why you see so many of Beatles songs or certain things which are really old, because their copyright has expired. So viewers, I want you to remember this slide, because these are the only three sources. There is no other source. So the moment we say public domain under the copyright regime, it consists of only these three things: not copyrightable, relinquished copyright, and copyright term has expired. This will help you now to understand really the realm of the public domain and how it really functions. To immediately, before we delve into what are the three sources and the examples of these three sources, public domain in copyright, how it is different than public domain in trademarks, public domain in patents, public domain in trade secrets. Virendra sir explained to us that how for trade secret it is different and how the things would be different. Oh, somebody is having fun doodling over this thing. Can you please stop, whoever is doing it? Public domain in copyright and public domain in trademarks. In trademarks, there is a concept called as publicized juris, which we all have used it. Publicized juris means public have a right to use it. Any trader has a right to use it. If I am selling, say, auto parts, I am entitled to use the expression auto parts. If there is some mark which is absolutely descriptive, if I am selling packaged drinking water, I can't say that I have monopoly over water. Marks which are publicized juris, or even marks like Xerox, which earlier were not publicized juris, but because the owner failed to protect it, it has now fallen into public domain. So that is a concept in trademark, that publicized juris. Public domain in patent and design is very simple. For patent and design, both of them have the criteria of novelty. As on the date on which you file the application, your design or your invention has to be novel. So if there is a document even one day prior to your date of application, and if the same thing is published somewhere, that amounts to public domain, and your patent can be revoked or your design can be cancelled, or you will not get it in the first place. In trade secrets, the threshold is even lesser. In trade secrets, all that you have to show is that Coca-Cola, when it talks about my trade secret, my concentrate, we can say, Arey Baba, there is a fellow in India who has the trade secret, or there are so many people who know it. And the moment, if at all, I'm saying this is not true, but if at all we are able to show, yeah, there are people who know how this is made, it has fallen into public domain. So these concepts of public domain, the concept of public domain in contrast to trademark, designs and trade secret is completely different. And the public domain concept for copyright is only those three works. So whether that work is confidential, whether that work was available to public, not available to public, all this is inconsequential. If it is not copyrightable, part of public domain. If it had copyright relinquished, it is in public domain. And copyright period, if it had copyright period and if it has expired, public domain. This framework is important for us to understand as to how public domain in copyright regime is different. Now, therefore, what is public domain? To give you example today, Shri 420, as we will see, why Shri 420, because Shri 420 the term of copyright has already expired for the cinematograph film. So today it is in public domain. Romeo and Juliet, same thing. Beethoven, again the same thing. Popular adaptations of work in public domain, Romeo and Juliet, Ram Leela is supposed to be an adaptation of Romeo. So there are so many movies actually which are adaptations of Romeo Juliet, Qayamat se Qayamat tak. So popular, these are the adaptations which I have shown of public domain work. Now, exploiting work in public domain, just to give you an example, Mona Lisa was made in the year 1503 by Leonardo da Vinci. 1503. Today we are in, so many years have passed. So this has come into public domain a long time ago. Therefore, if you see today, you have perfumes with Mona Lisa, you have shoes with Mona Lisa, you have toilet papers with Mona Lisa, you have bags with Mona Lisa, and this you are legitimately allowed to do. As I said, because the work has fallen in public domain, you exploit it in the manner that you want to do. Quarantine, Mona Lisa in quarantine greeting card is being sold. Mona Lisa after 10 days of having FB account, this is something funny that we saw. And let's just not talk about the person who should not be named here, but who is shown in the frame of Mona Lisa. Just to give you an example that because the work falls in public domain, you can do so many things with it. Now coming to my point, which I said, that somebody had said that if you want to really make something new, you have to surround yourself with something old. Because this Mozart Symphony number 40, which I am going to play, because this was in public domain, this could be used by Salil Chaudhary when he wrote the song when he composed the song Itna Tu Mujhse Pyar Badha. And look at it. It is correct that that symphony is in public domain, but look at the work also which has come into existence. It is a beautiful piece, this Itna Tu Mujhse, which I'm going to play just to show how you can legitimately use the work which is in public domain. मुझसे तू प्यार बढ़ा कि मैं एक बादल आवारा, कैसे किसी का सहारा बना कि मैं खुद बेघर बेचारा. Beautiful, right? My father's favorite song. But I did not know this. And in fact, once I was watching Tom and Jerry cartoon when I heard that tune behind. And when I researched, I realized that this was taken from this symphony which was published in 1788, made by Wolfgang, the great Mozart. Beautifully done, right? And this, because it was in public domain, there is no question of plagiarism, or there is no question of saying that this is an infringement, because that work was available in public domain. Now, which brings me now that we know certain manner in which we can exploit the public domain, how it is different. Public domain in copyright is different than trademark, trade secrets, patent designs. As I told you, 3 sources. Let us come to the first source: works which cannot be copyrighted. This is a Kesav Nanda Bharti of the copyright law, R.G. Anand versus Deluxe Films. All the principles of copyright law, the dichotomy between idea and expression. When we say you can't have monopoly in idea, you have monopoly in expression, all this is beautifully explained. To viewers who have not read it earlier, please see, I have given the citation. I urge everybody who wants to have a better understanding and a clear understanding of copyright law must read the judgment of R.G. Anand. In this case, the Supreme Court said there can be no ideas, there can be no copyright in idea, subject matter, theme, plots, historical or legendary facts, but your protection under copyright will be restricted to the form, manner and arrangement and expression of that idea. So ideas, matter, theme, plots, they all are already into public domain. There is no copyright in principle, theorems and formulas. E is equal to mc square. Yes, theory of relativity invented by Einstein. Whether he has a copyright in the relativity theory which he has, no, you can't have a copyright into some principles. Pythagoras theorem, a square plus b square plus c square. This Pythagoras theorem, that can't be protected under the copyright law, because copyright law is concerned only with the expression of the idea. Again, Agnipath versus Scarface. If you people have seen Scarface, which I saw for the first time during the lockdown, and it has a resemblance. I am not saying resemblance in a way, copy, Agnipath is not a copy of Scarface, but the idea is absolutely similar. The manner in which it is treated is different, but the idea is the same, where there is a boy who grows and then ultimately goes against the main villain for who's working and all these things. So you can't have any protection into the idea. You can't have protection into themes and plots. To give you an example, why to go so old of Scarface and all, Ujda, Chaman and Bala. There are so many cases where the theme would be the same, plot would be the same. So law says copyright can't be there into themes and plots. In fact, I should have included 2 days ago, there was a matter where we appeared for the defendant in respect of one series on Netflix called as Betal. Somebody sued saying that it amounts to infringement of copyright because he had written one Betal story, and according to him, our story, which was going to the show which was going to come on Netflix, that was infringement of copyright. One of the arguments which the court considered, and in the order, one of the grounds on which injunction was denied was that you can't have any copyright into the idea of Betal. Betal is basically Vikram Betal. And the court gives an analogy also, saying that this idea is known for so many years, so anybody can come up with similar concept and make basically a movie. So that was to show some themes, ideas. In themes and all, you also have, love stories, coming of age stories, revenge stories, sports drama. So you can't have monopoly into that. Those are in public domain. Historical events, nobody can have any kind of, in the events which have happened, you can't have any copyright. So for example, Bhagat Singh, we all know what Shahid Bhagat Singh has done. Now, in 2002, Shahid-e-Azam with that is Sonu Sood, Legend of Bhagat Singh, and Bobby Deol in 2002. So, and it was just a coincidence, I believe, that all of them came in 2002. But just to give you a perspective that in an historical event, Jallianwala Bagh, which has happened, I can express Jallianwala Bagh the manner in which I want, and I can't have copyright into the historical event per se which has happened. So that is a part of a public domain. Now, this is very interesting. No copyright in actual events. Historic events, yes, and no copyright in actual events also. This was an interesting case before the Bombay High Court, where the issue was, and this was a very interesting case, the plaintiff was Indian Express. Plaintiff number 2 was one of the persons who was working, one of the reporters who was working with plaintiff number 1, to draw home a point regarding the flesh trade which was happening in Madhya Pradesh in or about before 1981-82. This reporter actually went to Madhya Pradesh. He actually purchased a woman by paying 2,300 rupees. The newspaper agencies before, Indian Express, before this was done, they had written a letter to judges, politicians, and some of the 5 eminent people in society to tell them that we are doing this with the purpose of only showing to the public, bringing in public domain what is really happening in Madhya Pradesh. So he actually went, bought a woman for 2,300 rupees, brought her from Madhya Pradesh to Delhi, kept her in her house with his family, and then took her to orphanage, and then wrote a sensational piece by narrating each and every fact that had happened, right from the manner in which he approached people, what was the resistance that he faced, how easy it was then to buy a woman and get. So everything was written, narrated, and it was published into articles of Indian Express. Now, after a couple of years, there was a play which was made. Now, incidentally, the name of that girl was Kamala. On the basis of the name of the girl which was bought by plaintiff number 2 was Kamala. Defendant came up with some play, and that play also had a similar theme. And then they came out with a movie. This defendant in 1984 came out with a movie called as Kamala. When that movie was released, the plaintiff immediately approached the court, amongst other things, because in the movie they had shown identical that there is a reporter who's working for a newspaper agency, how he goes, how he purchases a woman, how he gets her. So the movie was really based on that. But then, of course, there was given a twist. Towards the end, there was a certain twist which was given. And in the movie, they showed the newspaper agency into bad light. So apart from the defamation angle, they filed a suit for defamation and for infringement of copyright. In that case, Bombay High Court, in a very interesting judgment, said, you cannot have a copyright over events which have actually taken place. This has actually happened. So at the highest, you have a copyright in the articles that you have written, which would mean nobody will be able to publish or make compilation of those articles. But the facts that you have mentioned, they are now in public domain by virtue of you writing about it. So if somebody uses those facts and expresses it in a particular manner, you will not have any copyright. Again, a beautiful judgment of way back of 1985, which reiterated the principles which were laid down by R.G. Anand, but it in that sense really spoke about certain events which had happened just some days before. The second judgment is no copyright in facts. Now, I showed you the judgment of 1985. I thought I must show you the most recent one also. Though the suit is 2019, the order was passed on 31st January 2020, which is 5 months before today. Here also, what had happened was, plaintiff number 1, he got the rights of a book which was written by one of the persons who was a CBI director at one point of time. That CBI director, he wrote a book called as CBI Insider Speaks, Birlas to Sheila Dikshit. And one of the chapters in this book was based upon, the title was Charge Sheet, the Shuttlecock Murder. Now, everybody, I take it, is aware about this famous Syed Modi murder case which had happened back in the days. And this person who had written the book, he was actually the investigating officer of the CBI. He was the director at that time, and he had written the books. He gave all the rights in the book to the plaintiff, saying that you can go and you can adapt and make a movie out of it. Zee Television, which was defendant number 2, defendant number 2 went to the main author saying that you give us the rights. Author said, I have already given the rights of my book to the plaintiff. Thereafter, Zee then, because these facts were already in public domain. This was a very famous case, how a 26-year-old Syed Modi was supposed to be a really a big player, but he was killed at the age of 26 years old, if I'm not wrong. While he was coming out of the practice, he was killed. And there were a lot of political angles which were involved, alleged affairs with the wife, and there were many angles which were involved. But so Zee TV came up with a web series which was made on the Syed Modi murder case. Now, when they came up with this web series, plaintiff approached the Delhi High Court, took an ex parte order. An ex parte order was granted against the defendants. Defendants immediately moved for vacation of the ex parte order. And this entire law was argued as to it is correct that the person had written the book. It is correct that the book was, the adaptation right was given to plaintiff. However, the defendants argued that what we have done is not really an adaptation. These are the facts which are there in public domain. If they are in public domain, I'm entitled to show it the manner in which I want. And this is exactly the court held. Court ruled in favor of the defendant. They vacated the ex parte order, and the court actually then said that in this context, the court had actually asked that whether you can have any monopoly over the facts of Syed Modi case, considering that these are already in public domain. Justice Endlaw actually asked this, and I thought it would be interesting for the viewers to see. I have inquired from the counsel for the plaintiff whether the IO of a crime and its prosecution has any copyright over the charge sheet authored by him or any other material collected. Obviously, he does not have a copyright. The author will not have a copyright. And in that sense, then Justice Endlaw said that this is a famous murder case which the facts are in public domain. And then he compared it with Nanavati murder case and said that there are 4 films and 1 web series which is made. And I don't see anybody being stopped from using certain facts which are available in public domain. That now quickly. So first part we have covered, facts which are already in public domain, we have seen can't be copyrighted, and therefore they are in public domain. Second source is relinquishment of copyright. Section 21, as I told you, you can relinquish your copyright or any of your right. Now for that, earlier till 2012, you had to give a notice to the Register of Copyright saying that I am relinquishing my copyright. Now after 2012, the law says I can give notice to the registrar or I can give a public notice. So I don't have to actually wait for the registrar to act on it. The moment I give a public notice saying that all the works written by me hereinafter fall into public domain, that is enough. The work is relinquished. If the notice is given to registrar, then registrar has to publish. But what is important here is, as I told you, once I relinquish my copyright, then I can't come after 7 days and say, no, now I had a rethought and I want to again get my work back into the realm of copyright. That can't be done. But relinquishment of copyright is the second source of public domain which is available to you under the Act. Under the Indian law, I could not find anything about practical examples for relinquishment. But this is an interesting case. If you see this was made by one Toni Fressel. This photograph was taken by her in 1947. And when the print was taken, it was actually sold for 12,500. It was licensed during her lifetime in 1962. It was licensed to Bill Evans to have to use that photograph on the album. Now, what she did was, when she died in 1988, when this Toni Fressel died in 1988, in her will she wrote, all the photographs and all the works that I have done so far, everything will fall into public domain. Otherwise, they had to wait for a period of 50 years or 60 years. But because she said everything will fall into public domain, on her death, everything fell into public domain. So till her death, only one license copy was used, as you can see here. The moment it fell into public domain, have a look at this: 2008, 2012, 2016, 1989. This is just to give you an example that how when the work falls into public domain, it can be used for any commercial exploitation that you want. Now, coming to little modern things that, generally we feel that, but if every music is copyrighted music, where do I get music which is not copyrighted? This is an organization which I found on YouTube. If you see, it is called as Breaking Copyright. And this C, which I told you, there are some organizations which they use that sign to say that the work is in public domain. That C, Breaking Copyright, when you go to this website, it actually sees, if you see this, you are free to use this song in any of your videos, but you must include the following credit. So you must give credit. That is a part of a moral right, which we will come to towards the later part of our presentation, where you can exploit the public work in the manner that you want, but you cannot not give attribution or what is called as the right of paternity, because every author has a moral right to which we will come to. But this is a site which makes you which gives you all the audios, videos free of cost, and you can exploit them, because when the people go and have an agreement with this breaking copyright, they relinquish their copyright so that you can now use this in any manner that you want. And mind you, you will feel that, of course, this music which is being given, if they are relinquishing, it must be some bad music or whatever. But have a look at this. Like, this is a good music which is available, and there are thousands of them. Just want to give you an example that it is not some old or some out of place music, but this music is also placed under public domain. See my point? So good modern music, but it has been placed into relinquished work. Same thing what we have for audios and videos. There is a website called as unsplash.com. Please look what they say. The internet source of freely usable images powered by creators everywhere. Photos for everyone. So these are again photographs in which the authors may be alive, but they have all relinquished their copyright so that you can go and use it in the manner that you want. And there are thousands of beautiful photographs. Just to demonstrate, I have given one example. I have given one photograph here to show, again, these are not some old outdated photographs, but some really new photographs, because there are creators out there who feel that the moment a work is created, probably they feel that we are not interested in money right now. What really should happen is my work should get acknowledged. My work should just go everywhere. That is the reason they say that, all right, I'm relinquishing my work, and then anybody would have a right to use it. And people then are entitled to use it across the world. Here, I would just give a small example. By 2005, if you remember, 2004, 2005, nobody had heard of Russell Peters, the famous stand-up comedian, right? Suddenly there was one video of him where he performed that famous gig of that somebody's gonna get hurt real bad. I personally was in college. I was in hostel. I watched it with all my friends. We loved it. And today you look at Russell Peters. He featured in the Forbes list, and he is one of the millionaires, has a lot of money, fame, everything. In one of his interviews, he actually said, I am thankful that nobody was worried about copyright, and somebody went right ahead and uploaded my video on YouTube. And he actually said, I want to thank that individual who uploaded my video breaking copyright, but he uploaded my video on internet, because of whom I am today what I am. So this is just to give you an example as to how there are people who may feel about it like these people who give their work free of cost, the Unsplash and the music that we saw. Whether books are part of the syllabus, an interesting point came up before the Delhi High Court, where this Advanced English Grammar, this book written by Martin Hewings, this was recognized or given as a book which was in the syllabus of this university, What had happened here was, because the book was published, because the book was given in the syllabus, there were many local companies who made guides. We know what guides are, where question and answers are given. So when these guides were published, obviously for answer certain portion of this book which belonged to Martin Hewings, they were published as an answer. Martin Hewings, through the Syndicate of Press of University of Cambridge, they filed a suit for infringement, saying that this is our original work and you can't reproduce our work without our permission, and therefore you can't make those guides. The single judge dismissed the suit. In fact, actually there was an order, there was an ex parte order which continued till the final hearing of the suit. So for 5-6 years, the order continued. Though written statement was filed thereafter, the defendant didn't bother. But when the suit came up for hearing, the single judge dismissed it by saying that how can you have a copyright if you have already given that book for a syllabus? It is as good as falling into public domain. Hence, you will not have copyright. Plus, the single judge said there is a fair use doctrine where if you use certain material for question and answers, it will not amount to infringement. Why this was important was when it went into appeal, the appellate court said that single judge was not correct to say that just because the book has been given into the syllabus by a university, it does not mean it has fallen in public domain. So on that front, division bench said that analogy is incorrect. However, the division bench said, considering the final work, the guidebooks which were there, and considering the original work of the plaintiff, it was not a copying of the substantial part. And there was a lot of creative things which were done by the defendant, and in view of which there was no infringement. But important in the context, as I told you, otherwise there would have been fourth source of copyright. or this would have come under the implied relinquishment. There is nothing called as implied relinquishment. Hence, the law says you have to give a notice. But the court here, single judge, interpreted by saying just because the book became a part of the syllabus, it can be a implied relinquishment, but that was negated. So there is nothing called as implied relinquishment. So two things we have covered, two sources, ideas and all not copyright protectable, and second one is that relinquishment. Let us now come to the most interesting one, which is the expiration of the term of the copyright. To understand the expiration of the term of the copyright, we must first understand what is the term of the copyright. So this is the term of the copyright. Published literary, dramatic, musical work, lifetime of author plus 60 years. Anonymous and pseudo-anonymous work, if somebody decides to do it in a pseudonymous name, 1 year, 60 years from the date of publication, because you will not come to know when the author actually dies. Cinematograph, film and sound recording, 60 years from the date of publication. This is the realm. This is the term of copyright under our Copyright Act. I know it may be difficult for people to immediately see it and try and calculate. Don't worry, I have made it simpler with a practical. I'm sorry. All right. Let us see how. Ye Hai Bombay Meri Jaan. The title is Ye Hai Bombay Meri Jaan. Movie CID. Who is the lyricist? Majroo Sultanpuri. Who is the composer? O.P. Nayyar. And what is the date of publication of this movie and sound recording? 1956. So there, please, and you have to understand that for a copyright, though when we play this song which I will play right now. So there are three kinds of works which are involved. One are the lyrics, "Ye Dil Hai Mushkil Ji," the lyrics which are there. So the lyricist is Majroo Sultanpuri. Second is the composer, the music, the harmony, the tune that you hear, that is by O.P. Nayyar. And then the sound recording per se, or the film. When I say film, I mean the video that you see. So these are the terms of the work, and there are different terms of protections which are given. So now let us use this analogy and see which part of this work has fallen into public domain or which will fall into public domain. Lyrics, as I told you, 60 years after the death of the author. Majroo Sultanpuri's date of demise is 24th May 2000. So 60 years, and these 60 years are always calculated from the first day of January following the death. So therefore, because it demised in 2000, 60 years will be calculated from 1st January 2001. So insofar as a literary work is concerned, if somebody wants to use this literary work, Zara Hatke, Zara Bachke, Ye Hai Bombay Meri Jaan, and do whatever with it, you can do it after 1st January 2061 without permission. So till 1st January 2061, it will not fall under public domain. Musical work, again, 60 years after death of the author. O.P. Nayyar is the person who wrote the music. O.P. Nayyar's date of demise, 28th January 2007. Calculate from 1st January 2008, 1 year after the death. 60 years, 31st December 2067. Public domain on 1st January 2068. Now, for song and video, the actual video which I played right now, which you saw, or the song that you will hear, all that has already fallen in public domain, because for a published song and video, the protection is given to you for 60 years after the date on which it was published. Now, date of publication was 30th July 1956. So you take 1st January after that year, take 60 years, and it comes to 1st January 2017. So the point being that cinematograph, film, and the video that you saw and the sound recording has already fallen in public domain. So you can use the song as it is and do whatever owner of a sound recording under the Copyright Act can do, or whatever owner of a copyright in the cinematograph film under the Copyright Act can do. You can do all those things with the actual song, actual video, or actual sound recording of the song Ye Hai Bombay Meri Jaan. Now, and just to give you an interesting fact here, the earlier Copyright Act of 1914, right now we are governed by 1957. 1914 Act initially provided for 14 years, 14 years only for the copyright to exist. In 1928, India became a party to Berne Convention. Berne Convention is the international convention which gives the minimum protection which every country must give to their work. In 1928, India became a party. Berne Convention had said no 14 and 15, it has to be minimum for a period of 50 years from the death of the author or from the death or from the date of publication. So according to our 1957 Act, actually all these periods, which is 60 now, it was all 50. What happened was in 1992, lot of work of Rabindranath Tagore was going to fall in public domain because 50 years were getting expired in 1992. That time the government immediately, before the term could actually expire, gave an extension of 10 years to all the copyrighted works, or basically extended the period by 10 years so that his works could not fall into public domain at least in 1992. But in 2002, finally the works fell into public domain. That is the story behind how this 50 years, which was initially there, has really become 60 years. Now to again give you an example with Billie Jean. My junior thought I must give a more modern example also, other than the example of Ye Bombay Meri Jaan. So we included this. Here the lyricist and composer is Michael Jackson himself. So here if you see, the lyrics and music will fall into public domain as I have given here on 1st January 2017. However, so far as the song which you saw just now, or the video just you saw, that will fall into public domain on 1st January 2044. So 60 years from the date of the death of the author, or 60 years from the date of publication. This is the rule. Sorry. Now, do you know, because I explained to you that how it begins from the first day of the January after which the event has happened. As we saw, if somebody demised in 2000, 60 years will be calculated from 1st January 2001. World across, and not many people would know about this, world across, 1st January is therefore celebrated as a public domain day, because a lot of works which were published, so in India right now, in 2020, all the works which were published in 1959, or all the songs, all the cinematograph films which were published in 1959 fell into public domain on 1st January 2020. All the songs, movies published in 1960 will fall into public domain on 1st January 2021. So because this 1st January has significance, 1st January is celebrated as a public domain day. As I said, in case of these pseudonames authors, it is 60 years from the date of publication because you don't know who the author was. Here, the first example is of Bitcoin. The famous Satoshi Nakamoto, who nobody knows who he is. I don't even know if this is a pseudonym, because there is a person called as Satoshi Nakamoto who came forward and said, Bitcoin concept, I have not written about this mining and whatever. I don't know whether you know, but this Robert Galbraith, this Cuckoo's Calling, was actually J.K. Rowling, and she had written this book. So in this case, because we know the author, the copyright for this book would be 60 years after the death of the author, because the name of the author is revealed. But in this case, if at all there is a copyright into what Satoshi Nakamoto has written, it will be 60 years after the date on which it will be published. Now, oldest traceable cinematograph film in public domain. A lot of people feel 1913, Raja Harishchandra, Dada Saheb Phalke. That is correct. The first indigenous film made in India was that. But before that also, films were being made in India. The first film which can be traced by anybody, which is in public domain and which was shot in India, is a film. I want to tell all the viewers that there is a site. If you can see, when you access this site, you actually get to see year-wise the titles which were published, and if the videos are there, it is an archive of the entire public domain work. So for everybody out there, if you feel that where will I come to know which all movies have fallen in public domain, मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ उनके साथ? There are archives which are like this, indiancine.ma, which actually has an archive of all these beautiful films which are fallen into public domain. I am going to show you not Raja Harishchandra of 1913. I am going to show you a video of 1899, at which time, if you remember, the manner in which film used to be made was there used to be series of photographs, and then those series of photographs taken together would make the film. This Panorama of Calcutta is published in 1899. Of course, it is little bit hazy and all, but what to expect? It is more than 120 years old. So there basically 1899, I have showed you the first cinematograph film ever that can be traced in public domain insofar as our country is concerned. A lost gem. You must also therefore know, earlier if you remember, they used to have moving images and they would not have sound. So then there would be a slate, it would explain what is happening and then next images would come. The first sound film was made, which was published on 1931, which was Alam Ara. So many people may be knowing about this film, but do you know the copy of this film has been lost? There is no copy available with the National Archives, the film archives. Nobody has a copy of this gem. This gem is lost forever. That also therefore advances the concept of public domain, that if it was in public domain, if it was actually made available freely even during that time, somebody would have been able to at least get a copy of it and somebody would have actually kept it. But in any event, this I wanted to tell you that the first film, Indian film with sound, was Alam Ara. But it is a lost gem now because there is no copy which is available. Bollywood classic in public domain, therefore, as I told you, 2019, this 1958, Kala Pani of Devanand, 2019, fallen in public domain. Kagaz Ke Phool, 1959, published, 2020. Mughal-e-Azam, no, there is something wrong. This is not 1958, it is 1960. Mughal-e-Azam was published in 1960. So ladies and gentlemen, 1st January 2021, Mughal-e-Azam as a film will fall into public domain. The grandeur and all that we say, that Mughal-e-Azam is really the first grand movie ever made by Bollywood. It will fall into public domain on 1st January 2021, which will be 60 years after the date on which it was published. Now, this brings me to that interesting concept which I told you, that now let us see, Mughal-e-Azam will fall into public domain insofar as India is concerned. But will Mughal-e-Azam fall into public domain insofar as USA is concerned, or Canada is concerned, or Mexico is concerned? Let us see how does that operate. As I said, all countries are parties to this Berne Convention. Berne Convention operates on 3 main features. One is principle of national treatment, which means any country, India, must give national treatment to all the foreign works. Foreign works means works which are published abroad or work which is written by a foreign person and published abroad. The first rule is national treatment, which means India should give a foreign work exactly same treatment that India gives to their own works. So if 60 years from the date of publication, even foreign work, if it is published, it will get 60 years from date of publication. If there are ABCD rights given to national works, the same works will be given to foreign works also. So principle of national treatment, which is common to all the countries. Principle of automatic protection, that you can't have any registration formalities, that you must register, you must give a notice, you must do this. No. The moment I express my idea into a material form or a tangible form, copyright comes into existence. This is also a prerequisite of becoming a member to the Berne Convention. So therefore, there is automatic protection. You don't require a registration. And third is principles of independence of protection, which means that there is a possibility that the work may not be protected in India. But if that work is protected, if there is a foreign work which may not be protected in the country of origin. So take an example. American work may not be protected for some reason in America. But that work, because of this reciprocal arrangement, will be protected in India, because in India it will have independence of protection. So to give you an example here to make things simpler, government works in USA are always in public domain. So whatever national research and whatever that they do, whatever films which are made by their government, whatever literature which is made by the public sector undertakings, all of them are in public domain. Anybody can use it. Their version of All India Radio, their whatever has been broadcasted, everything will be in public domain. Why? Because their act specifically says so. However, if somebody was infringing that work in India that work will have copyright protection, because in India we don't consider government work to be a work which is in public domain, which we will come to later. So in USA, all government work the act provides is in public domain. In India, government work is not in public domain. So US work, some literature of US not protectable in US will actually be protectable in India. So these are the 3 principles: national treatment, automatic protection, and independence of protection. Now, all these things that we saw, 50 years starting from the first date and all these, this India has adopted and all the countries have adopted because India is a party to this Berne Convention. Now, there is one interesting concept called as rule of shorter term. Now, that I will come to that concept. This, please have a look, a careful look at the screen. This is to show you what is the term of protection granted by different countries. India, if you see, it is life plus 60 years. If you see other countries, like if you see USA, it is life plus 70 years. Russia, life plus 70 years. Australia, life plus 70 years. Please have a look at Mexico. Mexico is life plus 100 years. Life plus 100 years, there will be protection. At the same time, look at this Ivory Coast and all, it is life plus 25 years. Of course, people who have protection below 50 years, they are not a party to the Berne Convention. Now, because of this, there is a very interesting concept which I told you. Now, let us take the example of Bombay Meri Jaan, sound recording of Bombay Meri Jaan. Sound recording was published on 1956. In India, therefore, the protection will be for 60 years for sound recording after the date of publication. So, it will fall into public domain, or the protection will be given only till 31st December 2016 in India. Now look at this, because in Canada, the protection is given only for 50 years. How India is 60 years, Canada, they give their local work also protection for 50 years. So they can't give protection for more than what they give to their national work. I may be giving 60 work, but if Canada gives only 50 years, my work in Canada will get only 50 years protection. So therefore, Bombay Meri Jaan as a sound recording fell into public domain in Canada on 31st December 2006. Now, Mexico, however, gives protection for 100 years. And there is a rule called as rule of shorter term. Rule of shorter term means if I give it for 60 years and if Canada gives it for 50 years, then if Canadian work comes to India, technically under national treatment, I must give Canadian work 60 years because I am giving my work 60 years. But I have accepted rule of shorter term, which means that the moment in the country of origin, the term of copyright comes to an end, in India also it will come to an end. So therefore, a Canadian work which has only protection for 50 years, when I'm giving protection in India, I will also in India give protection for only 50 years and not 60 years. This is a rule of shorter term, but many countries have not accepted it. Mexico has not accepted it. So in Mexico, Indian work where India gets protection for 60 years, in Mexico, you will have protection for 100 years. So Bombay Meri Jaan, ladies and gentlemen, will fall into public domain on 31st December 2056. Therefore, that concept which I told you, public domain is territorial. What is public domain in India may not be public domain in Mexico. So this is the concept on which, these international copyright or foreign copyrights really work. And as we all know, the international arrangement of copyright is really shaped by these international conventions. And Berne Convention and TRIP Convention is the most important convention. Now, look at this. Now, let us look at copyright protection available to Mexican work. If it was a Mexican work, Mexico it will get for 100 years. In Canada, it is 50 years and Canada has rule of shorter term. So which means the same Mexican work in Canada will get protection for 50 years and in India, it will get for 60 years because India protects their work for 60 years. This is to only draw home a point that therefore you have to be very careful when you use about the territory in which you are going to use the works, whether the work has fallen in public domain or no. This brings me to my very interesting slide. We have all sing this song, Happy Birthday to You. I don't know how else to wish anybody generally when you are singing a song together for years and years. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father, me, and my little daughter, 2-year-old Amaya, she can already sing and the manner in she sings is still the same. This was published in 1893. Thank God that it was in public domain, that it has transgressed all the international boundaries and it is in public domain. So if you go to Mexico, if you go to Canada, you go to any country, the manner in which they sing Happy Birthday to You is this. And the tune is also, as we know, Happy Birthday to You. I don't have to play the tune. But this is something which is good when works fall into public domain, because then there are no boundaries. People can use it and songs in that sense become really immortal. To give you another example, Baba Black Sheep, Twinkle Twinkle. Tell me, ladies and gentlemen, where would we be without these songs? Our childhood would have been incomplete without these songs. Today, when I was a kid, my parents were a kid. Today, my daughter, as I said, all of them, these songs, these works which are in public domain are such an integral part of our culture that we can't imagine our childhood or our life without these kind of public domain works. Now, do you know Baba Black Sheep was written and published in 1731, almost 280 years ago. And even Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars, the lyrics were published in 1806. Both of them, if you see, the tune for both of them is the same. And this tune was published in 1761. So there is a tune called as A Vous Dirager Maman. This is French, pardon my French pronunciation. But this tune was made in 1761. And if you see, both the songs are sung on this tune only. I'm going to request all the people who are listening to this presentation on mobile, think as if I am playing Baba Black Sheep. People who are watching it on computer, please feel that I am watching, please think as if I'm playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I'm only going to play the tune. Correct? Just to draw home a point that 1761, this was published 1731, because the works have fallen in public domain and they have been exploited in such a manner, they are alive even today. On a lighter note, when I asked my daughter, first when I played this tune, which song is it? She first said Baba Black Sheep. And after some time when I played the same tune, she actually said Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And I found it very interesting because if you actually see that Twinkle 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 Little Star, yes sir, 3 bags full. If you mix those lyrics also, they fit perfectly well. Apparently, I'm told, or I read, even Mozart has created a certain version of this Twinkle Twinkle, which was also available. Now, coming to some interesting things. Did you know? So, every 1st January, works fall in public domain? Not in US. In USA, between 1998 to 31st December 2018, not a single work fell in public domain. So, works fell in public domain on 31st December 1997, and then directly on 1st January 2019, for 20 years, no work in USA fell into public domain. The reason which was there was because as per earlier act, they used to give protection for all the published work for 75 years in cases of work which was published. So before 1922, whatever was published, the copyright got over in 1998. They, in 1998, passed a Sony Bono Copyright Term Extension Act, which is also colloquially known as Mickey Mouse Extension Term Act, because the legend in US goes that every time the copyright of Mickey Mouse is going to expire, something happens and the US Congress decides, and then there is extension of term. This has happened thrice in the past. So Mickey Mouse, which started, I believe, in 1928 with that Steamboat Willie, that has protection even till now, and it will continue to be protected if there is an extension. So in 1998, suddenly the US government came up with an extension of 20 years, which said that all the works published after 1923, because the 75 years were getting over on 1998, all of them have been granted extension for 20 years. So no work fell into public domain between 1998 to 2018, and on 1st January 2019, thousands of works, therefore, which were published in 1923 fell into public domain. As I said, Great Gatsby 2021, 2024, look at this, 2031, 35, and then there are all kinds of theories which go on saying that come what may. In a lighter note, I'm saying the government will not allow Mickey Mouse to enter into the public domain anytime soon. Now, this is another important concept. I have been telling you since the beginning that once the work falls under copyright regime, once the work falls under public domain, it cannot re-enter the realm of copyright ever, because a butterfly cannot become a caterpillar. That is the analogy, unless you were in the USA. Believe this or no, in 1998, works which were already in public domain in USA, by virtue of one act which was passed, the works which were in public domain was brought back into the realm of copyright in USA. Hence this meme, everybody knows Jon Snow season 5, when he had died, what had happened, and everybody thought that this is the end of Game of Thrones. Season 6, first scene, he was back. So just to demonstrate the point that after death also they actually came back. Now this is what happened in USA. I gave you the analogy of the life cycle, but of course it is US, so something had to be different. So from a butterfly, it became a caterpillar and then again a butterfly. Why this had happened was United States, the Berne Convention came in 1886. India immediately became a member of Berne Convention in 1928. United States for 100 years did not become a member of Berne Convention. Why? United States did not want to give up their requirement of registration of copyright and formalities. Remember, I told you for Berne Convention, there were three principles. One was national treatment, two was automatic protection. They did not want to give that automatic protection. They wanted people to apply and register with copyright. So therefore, till 1989, they did. 1989 was the first time when US became a party to the Berne Convention. After becoming a party to the Berne Convention, that national treatment, they decided not to give that national treatment, which is same treatment to the foreign works that United States gives to their own works. They must give same treatment to foreign works. That they did not agree. In 1996, when TRIPS agreement came, there was a lot of pressure on United States, and finally they had to give that national treatment and they had to give the protection. Because of which they came up with an act called as this Section 514 Uruguay Round Agreements Act of 1988. Under this act, no, this is again not 1988, it is actually 1998. Under, apologies for, because that's not correctly mentioned, 1998. Under this act of 1998, because United States decided that we will now henceforth give protection to the foreign works, as on the date of 1st January 1996, all foreign works which were not copyrighted in India because they were not registered in India or because, in US, all copyrighted works which were not registered in US, the foreign works, but if those foreign works, they were in the realm of copyright in their existing country, United States from 1st January 1996 decided to give protection to all those kind of works by virtue of this 1998 agreement. So therefore, a lot of foreign work which was openly used in United States, say music, in orchestra, in other things, because they had no protection in United States, after this act, because those work in their country of origin had protection and US decided, all right, we will give this national protection, all those works, foreign works, which were protected in their original country were given protection in US. So therefore, the works which were in public domain, they were brought under the realm of copyright in US. This was actually challenged. The constitutionality of this act was challenged in this Golan versus Holder, which went on for quite a few years. And in 2012, finally, the Supreme Court said that there is nothing with the amendment, nothing wrong with the amendment, and Congress was entitled to do it. Quickly now, all government works in public domain. As I told you, in US, all the government's work are in public domain. In India, that is not the position. In India, all the government works are not in public domain. However, there is a section of fair use, section 52, which says what does not amount to infringement. It says that reproduction of official gazette, these acts that we see, report of committees or judgment, etc., all this is fair use. Any kind of reproduction is okay, no difficulty. But government for some reason has not put this work into public domain. Like in United States, all this work is into public domain. Fair use, yes, so there is no restriction on you to reproduce them, commercially exploit them, or basically to say that I will make a compilation, I will send the judgment, I'll do whatever that I want to do with it, because reproduction has been allowed, reproduction has been allowed. But the other rights which are there that a normal copyright owner has, those rights are not there. The only right which is given to you is of reproduction by virtue of this fair use. Now, there is a reason why this has happened. Because our Copyright Act is mostly based upon the British Copyright Act. British Copyright Act as a concept of Crown's copyright, which means that there are certain things which will not fall under the copyright regime because that is something which belongs to the Crown. In Canada also there is a provision. In Australia also there is a provision for Crown's copyright. Of course, we don't have Crown's copyright, but the analogous principle is there for Government of India's works. And then there is a section which says that how Government of India's work will be in the name of the Government of India. Public undertaking works which is made by public undertaking employees, that will belong to Government of India. So there are a lot of debates. Should this not work belong to the public of India? Should the public not have all the rights that a normal person would have under the Copyright Act in respect of this work? Because ultimately this is all funded by the public money. So therefore, what is the reason to have this kind of copyright protection for government work? However, in 2012, in addition to what you saw, in addition to to what we saw fair use in 2012, this is what you get when you go to the official website of Government of India. All databases, resources, including metadata published on data.gov are licensed under the government open data license. So therefore you are entitled to use it, but they say it is under the government open data license. And please see the copyright notice. All rights reserved except published data set, resources and metadata. So you are entitled to use it, but not because it is in public domain, but because it is under an open license. So they are giving you a license basically to use that work. Now, of course, there may be a reason that, you know, you should not misuse the data and all, but that misusing the data is not within the realm of copyright. What is not made available to public, not made available to public, but what is made available to public, if you now apply the public domain criteria, which I have explained to you, there is no reason really why these works should not fall into public domain. For example, Prasar Bharati, whatever work that Prasar Bharati has done, Doordarshan, whatever works that they have done generally, what belongs to the government, there is no harm in actually putting it into the public domain so people can actually use it and make a benefit of it. There is an interesting concept which has now surfaced called as a surrogate right. It is a very interesting concept. Surrogate right means you take a work which is fallen into public domain and then you take a photograph of it, or you take make a digital version of a public domain work. And then you have a photograph of the work which has fallen into public domain and you claim a right over it. So for example, creator, expression of idea, material object. So Da Vinci, expression of idea, he made Mona Lisa. Today, what do? Mona Lisa 1503, long back into public domain, you take Mona Lisa, you take a photograph and digital version, you are selling it everywhere. No difficulty insofar as once you take a photograph, you may be entitled to sell the photograph because the photograph as a property is your property. The question starts arising when you claim a copyright into that. So this is an official website of Louvre. If you go to Louvre's official website and if you see, they actually make available photographs which are taken of Mona Lisa, which is in public domain. As I said, no difficulty. That photograph as a property belongs to you, you can sell it. But then they claim copyright over it, saying that that Louvre Museum has copyright in it. Now this concept of surrogate rights has become very rampant when it comes to all these art galleries, because otherwise works which are going to fall in public domain or they have fallen, as I said, there is no difficulty in selling it as a property. But the moment they start claiming copyright protection in it, there is a difficulty. But there are internationally, there are cases which have happened. In USA, there was a case where a person just took a photograph of something which was in public domain. And when he tried to say that, no, I have a protection into the photograph because it is my artistic work, the court said in USA, there is a, for the concept of originality, they have something called as modicum of creativity. So the court said that there has to be some kind of originality. When you are just taking a photograph, yes, that photograph belongs to you as a property, but not the copyright. For the viewers who may be thoda sa new with this, there is a difference between owning a property and owning a copyright in the property. So the book, Jhabwala book that all the people have, you buy Jhabwala book and you study out of it. So therefore, that book belongs to you, but the copyright in the book may belong to Mr. Jhabwala or the publishers. So that's the difference between owning a property and owning the copyright. So the court said, so far as your owning of that property is concerned, no difficulty. So anybody takes that property, there will be a problem, but you can't claim copyright in it. But in Germany, they said no, that creativity and all is not within our act. Our act does not recognize anything like that. So therefore, a photograph taken of some artistic work which is in public domain, you will get protection to it. Now, India, however, has taken a balanced approach. There is no case of surrogate right which has come to India so far. But just to give you an example, because India majorly follows the UK principle of originality is based on this principle called as sweat of the brow. Sweat of the brow means what? That the moment you have spent labor, you have spent energy, you have spent time on it, you will have copyright in it. Remember I said that original artistic literary work, so that originality for artistic work under the UK doctrine, the moment there is some labor, there is moment you have spent some time and energy, that is enough for originality. However, USA said, no. What sweat of the brow, we don't agree with it. It is wrong according to us. According to us, this is what US said. There has to be some minimum creativity for your work to be original. Just because you have spent time, you have spent money, you have spent labor, it does not mean that you will have the originality. For originality, there has to be minimum creativity. India was faced with both these arguments in 2007. In one case where all the judgments, we know the famous SCC that we use. SCC sued somebody who was using the exact copy pasting and the footnotes and the head notes that SCC uses. Some other publication was using as it is. When SCC sued them for infringement of copyright, defendants came forward and said, what, judgment and all, that is not protected under copyright. We saw section 52, you can't have any copyright. At which time Supreme Court considered all these aspects, that if judgments are not in public domain, if judgments are allowed to be used in a fair use doctrine, then whether SCC can have a copyright in it. The court there said that in the judgment per se, you will not have copyright. But the manner in which you have edited them, the manner in which you have paraphrased them, the manner in which the head note is there, all these things, there is skill, there is labor also, there is skill also, and there is judgment also. So when all these judgments were cited before the Supreme Court in 2007, India thankfully has taken a brilliant view, according to me, which is not as rigid as sweat of the brow, but it is not as open as modicum of creativity also. It is in between somewhere, which basically says skill and judgment. So skill is basically when you use your knowledge, your aptitude to understand, and judgment would be your ability to form opinion and general aptitude basically. So the moment there is some skill and judgment in India, you will get protection. But as I said, surrogate rights, they have not been tested insofar as India is concerned. Quickly, there is a lot of nowadays hue and cry saying that, boss, this term is not enough. Only 60 years after the death or only 60 years after the publication, the makers of Mughal-e-Azam, for a longest time, they also used to say, Mughal-e-Azam, as I told you, 1st January, ladies and gentlemen, 1st January 2021, work is going to fall into, the entire movie is going to fall into public domain. So there they said, when so much hard work is done, why should it only be 60 years? It should be little more. And in fact, I found this interesting tweet from Mr. Amitabh Bachchan on 20th of March 2018, 2 years ago, where obviously he was not happy with the fact that all the poems of Mr. Harivansh Rai Bachchan, they will lose their copyright in 2063, 1st January 2063. He had written, my right of copyright of the right to be my father here ever. So to say that, thankfully that right is not taken away. But that famous poem that ye mahan drishya hai, chal raha manushya hai, ashru swed rakta se latpat latpat, agnipat agnipat. Even one of my favorite poems, and what a classy poem. But as I said, ultimately, I am of the opinion, like the school of thought which says that the ultimate destiny of any work is in public domain. Only when these works really go in public domain, that they will live there forever, and people will be able to use those works to make something new. There is a new concept which nowadays has started of restoration. So you take something which is about to expire or has expired and you restore it. So I have shown here Mona Lisa. So, if that work has become bad, you actually restore it. But for restoration, there is no copyright. So for take example of Michelangelo, any of the scriptures or whatever, there, if there is some damage which is done, if you restore it, there won't be any copyright starting from that day. But restoration is a good idea because in a way it is a valuable initiative, and we'll have to see in the days to come whether the legislature in some ways react to it or not. As I am going to give you an example of this, that 1960 Mughal-e-Azam released, Sterling Investment Corporation in 2005 colorized it because they wanted that movie to be made available to our recent generation also, for people to know what this movie was actually all about. And they actually spent, and the values are anything between 2 crores to 10 crores only to colorize the entire movie. But according to me, this restoration does make sense at some point of time. I feel there can be a consideration that some kind of protection may be given to people who try and restore the work, because to be honest, if the work lies in public domain for a long time, it will die its natural death. By that I mean, if nobody uses it, it may die its natural death. By doing this, by actually reviving these kind of classics, they are ensuring that even the new generation or people who would otherwise not be ready to see a black and white version The moment they see a revised, colorized version, there is a possibility that, you know, this will be seen and this will remain alive for a longer time. Let me play the black and white original version first.
प्यार किया तो डरना क्या, जब प्यार किया तो डरना क्या, प्यार किया कोई चोरी नहीं की, प्यार किया.
Correct. Now let us look. According to me, this is phenomenal. I do believe that, you know, black and white has its own charm. So I don't want anybody to take me wrongly, that I do believe that it has its own charm. But please have a look at this.
प्यार किया तो डरना क्या, जब प्यार किया तो डरना क्या, प्यार किया कोई चोरी नहीं की, प्यार किया कोई चोरी नहीं की, छुप छुप है भरना क्या, जब प्यार किया तो डरना क्या.
This, I think, for the new generation, and generally this will go a long way. Unfortunately, as I said, now whether you can claim a new copyright into this film per se by saying that the copyright will not expire in 1961, it is going to be an interesting debate, because I'm sure people who have spent a lot of money in colorizing it and re-releasing the movie in 2005, I'm sure they will come up with their interpretation, and it will be interesting for us to see how the court generally react. One more example I wanted to give you of, I showed you the colorized version. Now let us look at some companies like Shemaroo, and I am mentioning Shemaroo because I went to their channel, and what Shemaroo has done is, they have just before the works fall into public domain, some 4 years ago, 5 years, or even when they are about to fall in public domain, Shemaroo has taken all these old works, has spent a lot of money, and they have enabled a user or a person on YouTube to go and watch this on a proper HD mode. So a beautiful song like this of Sri 420, which otherwise looks like this, Shemaroo, by spending so much money, knowing that this is going to fall, or this has already fallen into public domain, as I said, on 1st January 2016. Shemaroo, just before it fell into public domain, has converted it into an HD version. The reason being, it should be available and people should watch it. If with changing technology, if that technology can be used to ensure that these works remain alive, I don't see anything wrong in it. And as I said, there can be a consideration at later point of time to see whether there any protection can be granted. I'm going to play the first version, which is generally available, and the version of Shemaroo. See the difference. All right, now let me show you the HD version which Shemaroo has released. I like that part of "मैं ना रहूंगी तुम ना रहोगे फिर भी रहेंगी," because that is really what public domain is. When this work is created, when O.P. Nayyar created that work, or Majrooh Sultanpuri created those kind of works, what remains really and what speaks for them and their life is the work that they have created. Moral rights and public domain, coming to my last some 4 or 5 slides now. Moral rights, as I said, that therefore you can use whatever is there in public domain, no difficulty. However, under the Indian Copyright Act, an author has moral rights in perpetuity, which means that even after 60 years, if you do something which affects the moral rights of the author, the legal heirs of the author can actually file a suit against you. How do you affect the moral rights of authors? Authors have moral, when I say moral rights, there are 2 rights. One is right of paternity, as I told you, right to claim authorship of the work. So tomorrow, if Hamlet was written by Shakespeare, you may use Hamlet, you may take as it is, reproduce it, but you can't put your name. I can't say Hamlet written by Hiren Kamoth and just launch it in the market. Why? Because I must give that right of attribution. That is a moral right of the author, which is given for perpetuity. So mind you, Just because the work is available in public domain for you to use does not mean you can plagiarize it. When I say plagiarism, I mean you can't use that very work with your name. You can use that very work with his name, no difficulty, but you can't use that very work with your name, because that is not allowed. That is where moral, the first part of moral right. Second part of moral right is when you do something which prejudices the honor or reputation of the author of the work. For example, if you take a beautiful song, a song which, if you take this Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, which is meant for kids, which is meant for children, you take it and give it some kind of a different sexual connotation to it, and make some kind of a version which is absolutely not proper, and in that sense affects the or it affects the dignity or reputation or honor of the main author, he can still come after you. So while when I say you are entitled to use any work which is there in public domain, you are entitled to exploit it the manner in that you want, two things you must remember. You must give attribution saying that this work was created by ABC, and two, you must not treat the work, modify it or do something to it which is prejudicial to the honor or reputation of the main author. To give you an example, so therefore I can have t-shirts, I can quote the t-shirts, no difficulty. Open source online publish books, no difficulty. What I can't do is this: Hamlet by Prem Khullar. Prem Khullar is my junior. He can't do this. Hamlet, he will have to say Hamlet by Shakespeare, and then whatever that you have done. This would be wrong. This you will not be allowed to do. So moral rights still remain intact even though works fall in public domain. Lot of time now I think concepts must be clear to you, because public domain, means works which otherwise were copyrightable but fallen into public domain, or works which were never copyrightable. Now therefore, when you generally see open source work and licenses, these are not public domain. People must have heard of this GitHub. That GitHub, you can go there, and for developers there are codes which are available. You can use those codes freely. Codes are available, but that does not mean that those works are in public domain. It is only a license given to you to use it free of cost or royalty free. Like the difference, as I told you, in government work, license is given to you to do anything with the work, but the work is not in public domain. Similarly, too many people ask me this question, and this will make it clear. You will say, boss, I have taken this picture and I'm using this picture because it is publicly available. Again, if you use this public picture for your own, something which falls in fair use, for your own personal research, for review, for criticism, the section 52. So certain things which have been exempted, if it falls under that, no difficulty. But you can't take this photograph and launch a book with this photograph and commercially exploit the work. That you can't do. Publicly available does not mean publicly domain. Publicly available for your personal use, maybe yes, but that does not make this work available in public domain. And therefore Google has this. If you see, I have actually zoomed this part which says image may be subject to copyright. So be it Virat Kohli, Tendulkar, Shah Rukh Khan, whatever you search on images, Google gives you a caveat saying that this may be subject to copyright. This is only to therefore take away that notion that whatever is publicly available is not public domain. Google Book also nowadays, if you've seen, they offer you the book online. They will give only a small abstract which they will make it available. The moment you are done with the abstract or you read the previews, it will say total pages displayed will be limited and you have to buy the book. Certain books which have fallen in public domain 60 years after the death of the author or 60 years after the death of the publication, when that has passed, these books have fallen into public domain. So therefore, these books will be freely available. Google, in fact, is creating an online digitized version of all the books which are available in the world which are in public domain. And therefore, Google is one company which I'm sure keeps a proper track of all the works which are falling into public domain. People feel, what about this? This is actually a WhatsApp. The left hand side is my WhatsApp screenshot which I have taken. This abbe, yaar, nahi, shabash and all that you see. You think this is in public domain? No. This is all royalty-free artwork that you are allowed to use because you are using WhatsApp or because you are using any other software. But the creators have not put this in public domain. So what you really have is a royalty-free license to use it, not for commercial gain, only for your personal use and certain exceptions which are given in 1952. Now, fair use or public domain. Let me burst this myth that, people think fair use and public domain is kind of one and the same thing. Fair use is exactly, fair use and public domain are two completely distinctive things. What amounts, if there is something which amounts to fair use, can never be something in public domain. Fair use is what? fair use are the exceptions to infringement of copyright. So the owner has a copyright, but because defendant is allowed to do certain things with that work, though that use by the defendant is a fair use and does not amount to infringement of copyright. So the fair use doctrine, when you say my use is fair use, inherent in that is an admission that the work is copyrightable, but the manner in which I'm using that work, that amounts to fair use, hence no infringement. If the work is in public domain, it is in public domain, so there is no admission that it is copyrightable in first place. So therefore fair use and public domain are two distinctive concepts. And you must have seen nowadays people using this left, right and center, these songs and videos and whatnot. This one small video, TikTok. Yeah, no, as in if the gentleman thought that he can use this because I'm only using it personally, that is not correct, because this is outside the fair use doctrine, because you are substantially using the song. You are putting all these songs, putting all these videos online. You are getting advertisement out of it. You are making money out of it. So that will be outside the purview of fair use. But fair use is a little complicated chapter where we'll have sometime a presentation of its own on fair use. But this was just to give you an idea. This brings me, ladies and gentlemen, to my last slide of public domains presentation. This slide is about the song We Shall Overcome. I don't know if people know We Shall Overcome. This song was made in 1900s. It really became famous during the civil rights movement which happened in USA. And this song is truly an international song with every perspective. This song has been sung not only in US, but in Sweden, Prague, European countries, Africa, India. In India, there is a version of We Shall Overcome, an official version of We Shall Overcome, which has been made, which is Hum Honge Kamyab. But this song, therefore, is truly in that sense an international song. Whenever there is no hope, people feel that when there is no light at the end of the tunnel, this song gives that kind of hope to people, and not only in one country, but this song has really gone beyond the boundaries of every country, and it does the work of giving hope to everybody when they feel that there is no light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to play this one video of 1963, when Joan Boyes, a 23-year-old girl, she carried a march of about 3 lakh to 4 lakh people during the civil rights movement, and how this song was used at that time. Beautiful song. I was reading in Prague that I do believe that was only that sentence and following that was sung by thousands of people when there were atrocities which were happening to them which were happening to the people, and when they wanted to send a message to the government. This right side video is a beautiful video. We are living in a sad time in that sense. Though these webinars and all these keep us so active, and we are trying to forget what is happening outside, but what is happening outside is sad. You hear about so many deaths that are happening. You don't know really what is going to happen. We all are being optimistic with the whole COVID situation. And when I was going through this feeling, I came across this song and I felt it was good. And I thought there was no other better way to end my presentation, but with this, to show that how songs which have fallen in public domain can give hope just because they are in public domain and they are being exploited by people. This is one version which is now released in view of this COVID. Same song sung in English, Hindi, Norwegian. Thank you so much. This was the end of my presentation. As I said, I do understand it was a bit lengthy, but thank you so much. You guys were a great audience. Thank you so much.
Irene, thank you. And Tulsapur, sir, thank you too. I have noted a few questions. There are a lot of questions. We have just noted a few down. So one participant has asked, now if an author has assigned his rights in perpetuity, then will such work fall in public domain after the expiry of 60 years?
Sir, I'll take it. Okay, Kunal, there is nothing as perpetuity. So even when the author says, I'm giving you something for perpetuity, it is only for 60 years. Because more than 60 years, the author also does not have a right. So when he says, I'm giving you everything for perpetuity, it means 60 years from the date of his death or date of publication.
The next question is, are statutory royalties payable for works falling in public domain?
Obviously not. If it is in public domain, you do whatever that you want to do with it, unless and until you are not modifying it to prejudicially affect his honor or reputation.
Now there's one more question, which is bhajans which are in public domain and if given new music and published, can they claim copyright protection?
If the new music that you are giving, it is not merely a some trivial change, but if you have done some good massive change whereby it can have a life of its own, then probably if there is some modicum of creativity plus skill and judgment, then possibly by applying the principles of 2007 Supreme Court. But that judgment again is in the context of only literary work. This, if it is done to a sound recording and all, that is something which we will have to see. But that is generally what the law is, insofar as derivatives are concerned.
I can see a few more questions. One is, can you relinquish a part of a rights or for a particular territory?
Absolutely. Because Section 21 says that you can relinquish all or any of your rights.
Or for a few years also?
Okay. No, not for a few years. You can't do it for a few years. That's what I told you. Few years means that the butterfly will become a caterpillar after 10 years, which is not.
Hiren.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You wanted to know whether any Indian author has relinquished.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there is one author. P.L. Deshpande's work is in public domain now.
It is relinquished.
Yes. His wife, his widow has relinquished.
Okay, sir, if I would have taken most of his examples because our favorite author. So. Yes.
There's one, two more questions. One is, are mythological stories copyrighted? That's one question which has come on that.
Mythological stories copyrighted? No, again, if they are mythological stories, you can express Mahabharata. Ekta Kapoor is free to show Mahabharata in her own style. Nobody can have copyright. Or Ramayana, how anybody can show whatever has happened as long as you are expressing it in your own medium.
One more question which I can see is, after the term of the copyright is expired and we create a new work, will that work be an original work and entitled to copyright protection?
Sorry?
After the term of the copyright is expired and we are free to use that work,
yes,
will the new work which is created be entitled to copyright protection?
Sorry, I'm sorry. You said
to the extent it is not original, it is copyright.
Same analogy, whatever is new.
There are various other questions, but I don't think we have sufficient time to take them. So
what is the status of head notes of judgments?
That has been answered already.
What about rehearsed version of a song? Legal requirement to mention that name of the author while using a work that has come in public domain? Yes. Somebody is Chandira Mishra. Yes, it is a legal requirement because, as I said, the moral right is for perpetuity, and first part of moral right is right to claim authorship. If you use a work in public domain without giving attribution to the author can sue you saying that give me that.
There's one more question, which is for movies, 60 years, is it from the date of the censor certificate or the date of the theatrical release?
Not censor, date on which it is published. And what is published under the Copyright Act is when you issue copies or make the work available to public. When the good old days, actually, when the definition of or what is published did not include when you make the work available to public. It only said when you issue copies of the work to public. It meant if I have written one book for myself, and if I show it to somebody, that was not publication. Only when I made copies and gave it to public. But of course, with the change in technology, the definition was also amended to now say when you make the work available to public. Okay. Kunal, what you want me to read? What?
If you want to, because there are a lot of questions, I've picked out about 4 or 5 of them.
Okay, all right. Let me. Even if the original sound recording has gone into public domain, can the owner of the musical embodied in sound recording, which haven't gone into, but stop the usage of the original sound? Sankalp Dalal has asked that if the original sound recording has gone into public domain, can the owner of the musical and literary works embodied in the sound recording stop the usage of the original? No. They won't be able to stop the usage of the original sound recording because sound recording has gone into public domain. What they can really object to if somebody uses those lyrics and go and make a new song, then they can object. Otherwise, while making the sound recording, they have given all the rights. And in a sound recording, for when you exploit a sound recording, then the owner, the owner of the underlying works, because he's given all the rights already, will not have any cause of action as such against the exploitation of the sound recording, because it is a new species of copyright which comes into existence, species of work which comes into existence. Marylebone Cricket Club claims copyright in the laws of cricket, despite the fact that cricket has been played since more than 100 years. No, so therefore you have to understand what are they claiming copyright in. They can claim at the highest, if at all they can claim laws, because it is not law, it is actually the manner in which you are playing the game, really, or a method in which you must play the game and what will be the guiding principles. So first of all, whether it will be copyrightable. If at all it is copyrightable, if what they are doing, the fact that it is being played for 100 years, again, you have to consider whether that work has fallen in public domain, not the fact that the thing about which they are talking about. Ramayana has been there for so long, but if somebody wrote about Ramayana 100 years ago, 60 years ago, that book will fall in public domain. So just because Ramayana, the thing about which he has written, is known for so long, does not affect the public domain or copyright of the work per se. All right, Kunal, I think it's we've taken a lot of time already.
Yeah, I'll hand over to Nirali for the closing remarks.
On behalf of Dua Associates, I take this opportunity to express our sincere gratitude to Senior Counsel Dr. Virendra Tulsapurkar and Counsel Mr. Hiren Kamod for sparing their valuable time and enlightening us with today's topic. We can't thank you enough for enriching us with your knowledge and expertise. I also like to thank all the participants who took out their time to attend this meeting and hope the same gave you clarity on the subject and questions you had. For any further queries and concerns, you may reach out to us on the email ID which is in the chat box. Once again, thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Purkar.